Welcome viewers, Dr. JWA, theologist, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. How did politics make life this hard? Population without capacity, and the civilians, us civilians, paid the price. You weren't asked how much pressure your suburb could absorb, you simply watched it change. More competition for housing, more traffic, longer waits, more pressure on hospitals, schools and essential services, more infrastructure suddenly required. But that's not happening. Population growth can strengthen the economy, but not when it's in conflict with housing. Migration brings workers, skills, businesses, an enormous social contribution, but they've proven in Australia that these people aren't being vetted, and therefore the trades that we're saying are coming in are not. But this isn't the question, is it? The question is whether Australia's political architecture allowed population to demand to increase faster than the capacity required to support it. Because when population is deliberately expanded with the motive of mass immigration vote harvesting, housing just doesn't appear automatically. Neither do roads, hospitals, schools, water systems, electricity networks, which are being sabotaged in Australia, public transport. Someone has to build them. Someone has to finance them. Well, I can tell you the financing's coming from the taxpayers. And while governments argue over Commonwealth migration settings, state infrastructure and council planning, the financially compressed civilians experiences the collision immediately. Rent competition, housing prices, congestion across traffic, hospitals, shopping centres, infrastructure charges, taxpayer-funded catch-up spending, and lost hours travelling through systems operating beyond comfortable capacity. I can remember 20 years ago trying to get out of Sydney. Sometimes on a Friday afternoon it'd take 3 hours to get back to the Central Coast. If there was an accident, it could take up to 8 hours. So we're supposed to adapt. We're supposed to move further away from the city. We're supposed to pay more rent, borrow more money. We're supposed to leave earlier for work. We're supposed to accept smaller properties, work longer hours. We're supposed to make cuts, financial cuts somewhere else in our lives. And eventually adaptation itself disguises the severity of the failure, the financial, catastrophic political abuse, which is causing financial failure on Australians. We're supposed to disguise it and pretend it's not there. And so the Australian, the typical civilian Australian, becomes the additional capacity government didn't provide. Then comes intervention, housing programs, transport projects, rental assistance, infrastructure spending, cost of living relief. Billions can be committed trying to expand capacity after pressure has already arrived. Why is it failing, viewers? Why is Australia failing at a catastrophic, momentous rate at the expense of Australian civilians? Not the politicians. Who's financing all this catching up? The same population whose finances were already exhausted? You. Now follow that consequence across 20 years. Higher housing expenditure reduces savings. Our kids are not going to be able to afford a house in Australia. I keep saying, my first house cost $34,000. That same house now is worth $1.8 million. Now follow that consequence across 20 years. Higher housing expenditure reduces your savings. There's no disposable income anymore. I had a mate just said, look, bugger it, I'm going on a holiday. They packed up and he said, I can't afford it, but we're going to go. They went on a big surfing trip, the family, good on them. Fantastic. But he knew that it was going against the flow of his finances, but he also knew if he doesn't do it, it'll never happen. That's the situation that we're in. Reduce savings, delay ownerships. A lot of people live on borrowed money. That catches up with you when the interest rates change or you lose your job. The next minute you lose everything else that goes with it. Delayed ownership can increase lifetime housing costs. Greater debt extends your working life. People are fed up with it. We weren't designed just to work. Right, work, to try and keep up with the political, financial demands that are put on us. Congestion consumes family time. Infrastructure catches up. It consumes public revenue. They've wasted billions. And children inherit a housing market. Their parents increasingly struggle to help them enter. We can't help them enter. Us middle to lower class fools. This doesn't affect the upper echelon of Australia. They couldn't care less what's happening to you down in the middle lower class. They don't even know what's happening to you. And this is no longer merely a debate about annual migration numbers. It's past that now. We know what they're doing with that. It is a question of political sequencing and financial responsibility, which there is no political financial responsibility under this government, the Albanese government. And if governments knowingly increase population faster than critical capacity can reasonably be delivered, the resulting deficit doesn't disappear. It's transferred. Guess where it's transferred? Guess on you. And if Australians can demonstrate that this mismatch imposed foreseeable, avoidable, and identifiable financial losses upon them, I want to ask you, as an Australian, could you demonstrate that this political architectural abuse imposed foreseeable, avoidable, and identifiable financial losses upon you? In other words, this was foreseeable, what was going to happen, right? Why should you, who never designed this architecture, be left carrying its catastrophic accumulated cost? Why? Who decided that? You didn't. So at that point, another government rebate isn't accountability. No. The question becomes, should Australian citizens who have been on the end of this politically architecturally designed abuse be compensated? Because they've drained our finances left, right and centre to the capacity where people are committing suicide, they're giving in, they're ODing on medications and all the rest of it, because of the way in which the swamp has drained our incomes. The question is, should we be compensated? Put it in the Comments. Should we be compensated because of what they've done to us? I'll leave that answer up to you and put it in the comments.